Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. We are Team Byte MX. I'm Nellie, and I'm joined by Michelle, Grace, Wendy, and Ethan. And our project instructors are Scott and Ruth. And our client is the Rock Bicycle Club. They are an after-school program for middle school and high school students. And their goal is to provide engaging STEAM educational experiences using biking and other fun physical activities as a gateway for learning. Our project is going to be part of an upcoming educational program that they're creating with workshops to teach students about designing a pump track and for BMX and mountain bikes. Our team's project for the semester is making a digital simulation for PCs that will facilitate an upcoming design competition at the Rock Bicycle Club happening next spring. We have two pretty distinct components of our deliverable, where one mode will be for building a track using a keyboard and mouse, and the other will be using a controller to do a riding simulation. And as a stretch goal to make the riding part more immersive and engaging, we're working on making a custom controller based on BMX bike handlebars, which we will discuss in more detail later in the presentation. In the design competition, teams of students will first get to prototype with physical 3D printed modular track pieces. Then our project will allow them to digitally build their designs with some additional flexibility and creative freedom that the 3D pieces don't provide. Afterward, in our riding simulation experience, they can test out the tracks that they designed and see themselves riding or racing on them. In the end, the students will be able to showcase their designs to their community, and some of the designs of the pump track and the amenities in the surrounding areas will get built into a real-life park in the community. In short, our project covers these middle sections of the design competition experience. And now I'll hand it off to Michelle to discuss our design details, or our design goals.
Thank you, Nellie. So, based on our client needs, we identified several key design goals. First, the simulation is designed for kids aged 10 to 15, so the experience must be clear, intuitive, and engaging for this age group. Secondly, the simulation will be used in a guided classroom for educational purpose. We aim to introduce them to awareness level knowledge of STEAM concepts, particularly in making a pump track. And to balance accessibility and engagement, the simulation supports regular controllers for at-home use, while a custom controller will be featured in the community showcase to create a more immersive experience. We also aim for a smooth user flow to support rapid prototyping and iterating, allowing the students to seamlessly switch between building mode and the riding mode. And finally, we want our users to be able to express their creativity and design whatever types of bike park that they want to, supported by our strong artistic aesthetic appeal. So before we discuss our design decisions, we should first understand what a pump track is. A pump track is a feature of bike parks made up of bumps and turns like you can see here. So you maintain your momentum while riding on a pump track by pushing and pulling on the handlebars and shifting your weight in a rhythm. And the goal is to pedal as little as possible. As part of our research, our team tried riding on several pump tracks, as well as talking directly to our SME and target audience, who are the members from the bicycle club. And we learned about their hobbies, their favorite games, and their favorite part of BMX biking, which guided us in the design later on. Now I'll pass on to Nellie to show our current demo.
Thank you, Michelle. So now let's watch a couple of quick demos of the current state of our prototype. On the track building side, we have a sandbox where the students can select from a list of pieces, and they can add and connect them to each other to make a path. Right now, we have implemented all of the existing pieces that the club provided as 3D printed modular track pieces. Next, we will be expanding this by adding a greater variety of track pieces and additional amenities, some more flexibility and customization in the visuals of the track, and improved textures and terrains to make it look and feel more realistic. On the ride simulation side, currently, players can choose a starting point for their bike and press play to enter that view of the track where they can ride on what they've built. This is still an early prototype, and we are going to change the control scheme and visuals to make pumping a major mechanic and make this experience match the true feeling of riding on these tracks as much as possible. Now I'll hand it off to Ethan to discuss more details about the technical implementation.
Thank you, Nellie. There was a couple of ways we could implement the system, but after evaluating our options, we decided to implement the system so that the user is assembling the track using individual pieces. This approach keeps our system accessible to our target audience while striking a good balance between having lots of options and diversity and being easy to learn and use. In our system, each track piece has defined edges that it can connect, and multiple of them will form a track. We create a system to manage and save these connections so that the user can not only snap these pieces easily, but also move multiple pieces at once. In the future, we'll also add features to allow the user to resize and decorate their track pieces and add other amenities like park benches. In order to make the tracks look natural and physically plausible, one of our features is dynamic terrain that raise and lower to match the track surface. Our users will be able to build pump tracks above or below ground level without having to worry about shaping the terrain themselves. One challenge for this system is that we'll need to create a lot of new pieces. In order to do this efficiently, we have developed internal tools and scripts that allow us to automate some of the process and make this quick. Here you can see some of the custom interfaces we made, showing how an edge of a track piece is defined. For the riding feature, we are building off an existing bike physics framework. But after we compared our own experiences of riding on pump track with this system, it became clear that there are some additional features we must implement. One of which was pumping. The current system is built for cycling, but as we discussed earlier, pumping is crucial for a pump track. And we want to make the user perform that pumping input manually so that they can get an understanding of how a rider would flow through the track they built. The second feature is related to riding through a berm, which is a slope turn like this one. In real life, when you're riding through this, you don't actually have to turn. As long as you have enough speed, your bike will tilt and curve through it. But right now, the system doesn't support that. So this is something we would like to add. For this system, our primary input device is a traditional controller, which will ensure that the simulator can be easily deployed anywhere by our client. But we also want a custom controller which can do certain actions and give a more visceral feeling for them. The controller has a handlebar that can be physically pushed and pulled to simulate the motion of pumping, whereas on controller will be a vertical joystick input. The controller also has the ability to rotate and steer, which also be a joystick input on traditional controller. Now, I'll pass it off to Wendy to talk more about the details of this controller.
Okay, thank you, Evan. We want to use an intuitive physical interface that allows users to naturally interact while using our platform, creating a more immersive experience and helping them better understand BMX tricks. At first, we wanted to print the whole handlebar, but then we realized that the 3D printing whole things would be too fragile, so we shift to only print the part that integrating sensors. The 3D printing structure can be connected to a commercially available handlebar. The structure is integrated with 2 weight sensors and a spatial sensor, all enclosed in a compact box, and it is easy to assemble. The controller consists of 3 main parts: the top cap, which holds the weight sensors and closes the box, and the middle force panel, which directly attach to the stem and transfer the pushing and pulling forces from the handlebar to the weight sensor. The middle panel also allows the handlebar to rotate up to 30 degrees in both directions, and there is a spatial sensor attached to the panel. Finally, the outer box can be connected with the bottom weight sensors and create a stable and enclosed environment. Since 3D printing still raises some strength and durability concern, we are researching with optimal slicer settings and modeling tolerances to balance the printing time, strength, performance, and precision. The printer's version, filament height, and slicer parameters significantly affect the printing performance, especially when the model includes flat structures. And it's faster for us to figure out how to design and iterate our model and to achieve good stability. Now I'm going to hand over to Michelle to talk about the UI mockups and user experience.
Thank you, Wendy. Since our target audience is children aged 10 to 15, our UI design needs to be intuitive, easy to understand, and visually appealing. We drew inspirations from creative building platforms such as Roblox, LittleBits, and Draw.io, which emphasize user-friendly construction experiences that balance freedom and clarity. In our mockups, we focus on creating a simple interface with clear navigation and readable text. We explored 2 approaches. One stylized and cartoonish, as you can see on the left, and the other more modular and rectilinear on the right. As development progressed, we found that the modular style worked better for implementing animations and maintaining a smooth visual flow, so we decided to move forward with that direction. We also tested different color palettes and to find a balance between being engaging and not too overly distracting for our users. We're still working on trying to find the best color for the interface. And moving on to the user experience, our goal is to ensure that the app feels natural and fluid to navigate. As mentioned earlier, one of our design goals is to encourage rapid prototyping and iteration. So having a clear and logic flow between building, testing, and refining is essential. We also focus on improving overall usability and satisfaction by allowing users to undo actions, grouping objects, exit flow easily, and save or open files without friction. All that is to help reduce frustration and make the experience more seamless and enjoyable. Now I'll pass on to Grace to talk about our art direction.
Thank you, Michelle. So we want to use the BMX track, earthy colors, to evoke the same feel of an outside track on the experience. The experience is meant to invite the player to create and encourage them to their curiosity and problem-solving skills through iteration and engagement. We don't want to punish the player for making mistakes. Rather, we want to reassure them they can make as many changes as they want to their design. For the art style of the experience, we're staying away from more classic textures to flat shades, thick outlines, and crafting material details through lines and speckles. We are using a shader like comic book and toon style, which help us in creating an environment that's sporty yet simple. It helps us by reducing visual chaos, by making the visual space more clean and intuitive. We also did playset from the kids from the Rauk Bike Club to serve how they interact with the workflow of our project. We had questions prepared for them on the playtests based on how the kids interacted with the physical and digital pieces, how they communicated with each other, and if they were having fun. We observed that the kids actually were thinking about the design based on their experience on actual BMXing. And they also were thinking about the emotions they could feel when choosing an individual piece for the design. They iterated and tested the track multiple times before finishing. When they tested our digital version, they found the UI and the drag and drop intuitive and easy to use, and they had a lot of fun testing the design that they made when playing the track. We did receive feedback on a couple of things, but specifically on that how we have it right now, that it's not realistic to enter the track from a lower point. Rather, the rider usually goes from a top of the bank, kind of like seen here, to get momentum and drop in. So we are going to fix that. Also, right now, they want to make a big loop. They have to be very precise on how they balance the loop edges. So we have to make it easier for them to just be able to connect the smaller pieces with the bigger pumps. And other feedback that we receive is to add more features, like them being able to add, to be able to do BMX tricks, and they actually want to see themselves crash. And I will hand the next steps to Nelly now.
Thank you, Grace. So, as you saw, we have some prototypes of both pieces of our deliverable, and our next steps are to continue fleshing out the track building and writing to meet our stated goals by playtest day and soft opening. On the track building side, we're going to add flexibility to the track design by adding more pieces that haven't been 3D printed, having the pieces interact more with the terrain, and making it easier to connect pieces since we're not bound by the rigid structure of the physical pieces. We're also going to add in some constraints like the size of the track based on the need for this to get built in a real park. And we're going to integrate other pieces outside of the track, like the amenities that the students get to use in their designs. On the writing side, like we mentioned, we have to make pumping a core mechanic and then spend time fine-tuning those controls to feel as natural and realistic as possible. We're going to continue prototyping and experimenting with the custom controller design now that our sensors have come in and we've completed a couple rounds of the 3D printing. In summary, we are Byte MX, and we are working on creating a digital track building and riding simulation to facilitate a pump track design competition at the Rock Bicycle Club. Thank you for listening, and we're now open for Q&A. And my apologies for the corruption. I promise that I tried this presentation in this room earlier today, and I truly don't know what happened. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. This slide is corrupted. I'm going to go back up here. Or if we reload or something, is it better?
And does anybody have any questions?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay, we can look at it.
That's great. how do you know you're building the right thing, and what are the biggest unknowns at this point in this project?
When can you be building the right thing digitally or the experience? What do you refer to?
Well, I see things like the, you lay the track down and it dynamically augments the ground terrain, which is cool, but is that necessary? And aren't there more important things to make sure that you have those aspects of the experience working properly that are executing the project in a way that is delivering?
Thank you for the question. And we are also very interested in like what exactly the client wants. And through our communication, one of the understanding we have came to achieve is that the aesthetics of the track created by the kids is very important to the whole process and to their like competition. So things like terrain, amenities, and decorations are like very important parts of the competition, and that's why we're putting focus on that. And of course, in terms of our core deliverable, we're aiming for something that is they can deploy and actually run the competition with. So we're keeping a close track to ensure that they have all the tools they need to make that possible.
So that's a great answer. My follow-up question was, what is still unknown and that you have to prove in this project, or do you think it's just a matter of executing everything now?
I think in terms of unknowns, our custom controller is still, we have some solid plans, but the pieces, the fidget pieces have just very recently arrived. So there is still a bit of unknown in terms of how well and how much time we can have to iterate on something like that. But in terms of the software part of the track building and writing part, we are fairly confident in seeing every feature we have through to completion.
Another unknown will be not just to make it a design simulation, but that the kids are actually enjoying. So that's why we're doing play testing. So asking them, what do you will find more fun on this? And we find that question's a little vague. So they're like, I don't know. Okay, what about tricks? Oh yeah, I would love to do tricks. So things that we have seen in other games do, and that we think that the kids might be engaged with, is making sure that the experience, sorry, not a game, and the experience is engaging so they can go back again.
Thank you.
Okay, so did I hear you guys right that you said that they go from building a virtual to 3D printed track, and then maybe one day this will actually be a real track? Okay. In the design for the kids, are there guidelines for how to build a safe and fun track, one that can actually be printed? Because I can see somebody just like making the craziest, zaniest thing that will never be used, and then what did they learn? So are you also teaching them about what it takes to do this correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So our simulation, our project is not a standalone thing. It's going to be part of an entire educational program being run at the Rock Bicycle Club. They are going to have workshops that are teaching exactly what you mentioned about the basics of, how does a pump track work? What are safety considerations? Things like that. And then while we want them to have creative freedom, we are going to put some level of limitations and not letting them do the craziest, most unrealistic track possible. Oh, we could do one more question, actually?
You all experienced the pump track yourself, right?
Sure.
Are there insights that you got from that made their way into the game? Was that useful? The experience, sorry, was that useful?
Yeah, so one thing we learned from our experience is that we don't need to pedal on the track. And before that, we were thinking, for the custom controller, we were thinking to use an actual stationary bike where there's also pedal. But after we really experienced it, we realized that that part is not necessary. That's why we are currently only building the handlebar part, because pushing and pulling is a more important thing to do when you're doing a BMX bike.
And just on to that, I think pumping in particular is such a core feature of our experience and of like riding on pump track. You can see both in terms of software and in terms of the link controller, we put a lot of emphasis onto recreating the feeling of pumping just because we wrote it for ourselves and we realized if you don't pump properly, you can't really get anywhere on such a track. So that I would say that's our biggest takeaway.
Did I also hear right that the players want to see themselves crash? Was that right?
Yes.
Do you know why?
I think it would just be fun, and yeah, a lot of the kids and play testers have tested, and also it's a way to educate them, like, or try to educate them, like, if you take this turn in this wrong way, but then the physics is not right, so you can crash.
Yeah, I think it provides them a good contrast with when they do something successfully. It helps when there are stakes if you do something unsuccessfully, and yeah. Yeah, thank you.
You have the other clicker?
Hello, we are the Sunset Jive and Hive team, and we'll be presenting the Billy Joe Jive experience that we've been working on. So this is our team. We have Faye, Asu, Josh, Eliana, Benjamin, and I'm Mo. Our faculty advisors are John Dessler and Tom Corbett, and our faculty consultant is Ricardo Washington. So first, what is Billy Joe Jive? Billy Joe Jive Super Private Eye is a series of books and animated shorts written by John Shearer and illustrated by his father, Ted Shearer. It's a story about a boy and girl detective duo solving cases together. And it was very significant at the time because it celebrated African American language and culture through literacy and representation. Our client is the Shearer estate, more specifically the lovely Marianne Shearer, wife of the late John Shearer. And our project goals are to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Billy Joe Jive and also bring the Billy Joe Jive IP to the next generation. So what are we actually making? The answer is a 20-minute mixed medium escape room-like experience. And our target audience is children aged from 10 to 12. Our deliverables for the semester will be an experience that is fully playable at festival, as well as a packet of information to make this travel ready. Now we'll show you an animatic that will serve as an onboarding video for the experience.
What up, new private eyes? Welcome to our detective crew. I'm Billy Joe Jive, the baddest private eye that's ever done it. This is my partner in Top Ace.
You're too much, Jive. Sup, y'all? I'm Smart Susie Sunset. And ain't nothing getting solved here without my insight.
Though y'all rookies, we really need your help solving this new stitch.
People around here say y'all are the realest.
Hey, I thought I was the realest.
No cap, Jive. Just saying, we're a monk like mine who know how to bring it.
Alright, word. Anyways, Queen G reached out. She was one of the dopest graffiti artists that ever did in the black art movement back in the 70s. She said that she burnt out and hasn't been able to throw any pieces for a while.
Right now, we're out in the streets checking out the place
So sorry for the glitching. We have no idea what happened. We literally downloaded it. But anyway, as you just saw from our onboarding experience, for narrative, the characters Sunset and Jive will be inviting the players to join their detective agency, and they are asking for help to solve the mystery of Queen G's special spray cans that went missing. Queen G is a character that we created just for this experience, as well as some others who will serve as suspects. We decided to set the story in present day to make this IP more relatable to the new generation, and this wholesome story about art, legacy, and community will be discovered by interacting with the clues found in Jive's crime lab.
So how do we pull this together as an interactive experience? As you all seen, there's the onboarding by Jive and Sunset that welcomes them into the agency to help them solve this mystery. Queen G, Queen Graffiti, rose in the ranks in New York City back in the 70s, and her sprays went missing. And so some of her art stuff that she had in storage and had around, are all around the space that you see here. So Jive and Sunset will invite them to explore the files, the posters, as well as the graffiti book that features artists over the years in some of their work. They will also be receiving prompts from Jive and Sunset to ask them about motive, to question some of the characters. And so the phone will ring and they'll call up and talk to some of the characters about some of the motives and some of the things that happened at that time. They will take a lot of that, some of those clues, and keep them and use it to help fill in the missing gaps in the graffiti book, as well as help Sunset and Jive, who are out in the field, find some of the missing pieces. So they'll take some clues from the book or from the posters, and they will let Jive and Sunset know where in the community to travel to get the missing pieces. As they are brought back, and throughout the game, they will use a detective board to align their evidence, to confirm and deduct, and ultimately pull these pieces together in the final puzzle, which will allow them, from the testimonies and the missing pieces and the tools, to solve the mystery, both the why and the who. I blacked it out so y'all don't know the mystery. We don't want to spoil it for anybody. And in summary, we want to welcome them into the space by a facilitator that lets them know what's in here, and we're getting ready to have the onboarding with the characters, so they're introduced into the world. They will be able to explore the space, both digitally and physically, and they will have clues. There will be little puzzles, little things they can figure out. They'll get a chance to hear from characters, as well as, by the end of it, be able to deduce the motive and the culprit. At the end of it, being able to celebrate and confirm that with the character Queen G and the detectives Jive and Sunset, and then be exited by the facilitator. Azu?
So here are some of our important props. The Tool 5 and its controllers. Tool 5 is an AR projection glasses, work with a special material projection mat that can let the players see all the models in 3D. And by using the controller, they can interact with the models and things we created for them, including the maps, as you see in the pictures. Another interaction is the detective board, where we put the RFID on or under the board. So the player will gather the items and clues in the game, and they will attach it onto those RFID readers, so the programs know if they are having the right things. We also plan to 3D or make some of the props to make them similar to those props when they looked back in the 70s, especially those items that Billy Joe Drive and Smart City Sunset used in their past cases before. And we also want to emphasize the interactions between the digital and physical world. The first two pictures are the possible add-ons we have been explored that can be attached to either an ESP32 or an Arduino and can interact with Unity. The left one is a RFID reader. Just as I said, we plan to put RFID stickers on the 3D models and clues we created, so the programs know where the players are. And also the second part, the second pictures, is a e-ink display. It's like a size of 10 palm, And in the story, we plan to let Smart City Sunset and Billy Joe Drive go onto the field and took pictures, and those pictures will come back and display it on this display. And so it will give a feeling of the old pictures. We still need some extra hardware to make it work, but we will keep exploring on it. And the third one is the telephone that works through a local view IP. This telephone will make sure that the players can communicate with the game characters through it. And it also works well with Unity.
Next, I'll talk about how we will be using the TIL5 for the digital aspect of our gameplay. The TIL5 is what we use to communicate with Billy Joe Jive and Smart Susie Sunset. So on the TIL5, we can see a map of the neighborhood where Billy Joe Jive and Smart Susie Sunset is located in, and the players will watch them travel to the different locations on the map to help search for clues for the players to use. Players will also be finding these clue cards in the physical world, which would have RFID chips in it, and you can scan that near the TIL5 to send Billy Joe Jive and Smart Susie Sunset to the designated locations on the map. There would be 4 main locations, each containing interactive experiences and clues to solve the overall puzzle. So here's some examples of the interactive activities we'll be using. The TIL5 controller to be used as such like a flashlight or as a spray can to virtually paint on the trains. Here's some prototypes we created so far for the map in the rooms. We're going for a low poly art style to create a cohesive look to blend with the 2D art elements in the environment.
So when we first started this project, we were given a lot of freedom. So before jumping into decisions like designing narratives and props, we realized it was important to look back to our source and understand what Billy Joe Jive truly represents, as we've already discussed. So we started with field research at Children's Museum, where we observed how location-based experience engage kids through touch and play. And we realized many activities there were designed for much younger kids, but the way they combine digital and physical elements has informed our design later. At the same time, our research on 4th grade reading slump has helped us to decide focus on 10 to 12-year-olds who just experienced a shift in reading interest and are ready for more challenging puzzles. We also explore transformational experiences where we're learning how to design games that can help build confidence, curiosity, and sense of agency. On the narrative side, we're looking into the Bridging Differences playbook, which examines how play can help people connect across cultural divides, and that is the same echo with the book's original goal. We also look into the IP modernization and how to bring a 1970s IP into a modern context without losing its essence. So from there, we studied the history and culture of graffiti in New York City in the 1970s. Based on narrative choice, we studied several real locations that were important at that time and picked some as our key locations in our virtual space. So the bench is where artists gather and share ideas, and what trains the yard is where they paint the subway car, and the graffiti studio is now the place for artists to experiment and work together, and the Mud Club is a famous exhibition venue for music and art.
Thank you, Faye. The original Billy Joe Jive books and animations had a massive transformational impact, and we want to bring the same goals from that source IP into our project now. After some feedback from quarters, we realized that while those goals are still important today, the form that they've taken has changed over the past 50 years. Through our research, we refined our transformational goals. Our main goal now is helping kids practice reading comprehension and understanding meaning in context, which is a more specific form of our older goal of literacy. Around our target age range, kids are transitioning from learning to read to reading to learn, which is a difficult transition that many people struggle with, particularly people in underrepresented communities. Our other goals have also changed forms and now take a different role in our experience. We believe that through representation of familiar language and culture, we'll be able to get the kids more excited and engaged with our experience, which in turn will let them practice their reading comprehension skills more. Using those skills through clues, through clues and solving puzzles, they'll be able to practice their critical reasoning skills, and through the narrative, they'll be able to practice not making assumptions based on stereotypes of people. As a team, we'll consider our project a success if we create a fun engagement with the Billy Joe Jive IP. That was our main goal starting the project. But even more so if we're able to get our players to practice the skills that we want them to learn. And as a team, for the personal growth of our teammates, we want to make sure that we're also developing interesting, interactive experiences and gameplay and telling a historically relevant story. We've playtested a lot through the semester, and that playtesting has given us confidence that our current direction of our project is moving in a good direction. We've playtested many aspects of the experience with our target audience, including watching kids play thinky games to understand their critical thinking skills and how they work together, testing our story and art to make sure that it's something that's appealing to the kids, and watching kids interact with old technology to see how excited they are about using those things in our experience. We have also playtested more recently some of our puzzles and game flow, but we have not playtested our full experience with the kids yet. That will be happening starting in week 8. We'll have full paper prototypes that we're playtesting. And then at week 9 on playtest day, we are demoing a full slice of our experience with all of the technology integrated. We're also going to be ramping up our prop and set fabrication and iterating our puzzle design through playtests. This will all culminate at week 14 festival, where we will be showing our final deliverable, and we encourage you all to come and play it. Thank you, and we welcome any questions now.
Hey, so the team is someone on the team's doing the writing?
Yes,
Okay.
it's me and Benjamin.
Great. I'm interested in your process because you're trying to represent a kind of classic character, but update it for the modern age. So you're using, Gen Z lingo, I think. And I'm wondering, how do you balance how much to go into, the language of youth with the fact that they're learning to read or comprehend, and that might eventually become, language of the previous generation, and how does that tie into you're adding to the legacy of the characters?
Okay, so this is a really interesting question. We did some research on the slang from back in the day, specifically for the story that we're telling, which is graffiti artists, hip-hop, and other things. And it is true that we are translating some slang for the newer generation. That's why we wanted to include a character that's older, so we can bridge the slang from the past with the slang today. Our target audience is a little bit older, with them being able to comprehend the newer slang, but it is going to be a part of the narrative to teach them the old slang as well.
I think on that point, one of the things that the original Billy Joe Jive books were really known for and impactful was that they used the slang of the time as a way of letting kids learn to read and practice those skills in a context that they were more familiar with. And it was really revolutionary at the time for doing that. No other children book did the same thing. And so we want to take that impact of the book and translate it into the form that it would exist in today with modern slang.
And so I have a bunch of those kids in my household, and I have more in my family, as well as the children that I serve. So I hear a lot of that language. So a lot of it came natural in its translation. But we also wanted to make it that they're professionals. They're doing a job. They're working and interacting with other people. So it's not like every other word is going to be some slang term. Being able to work with an older person from the 70s, and from that community too, we're able to include that. So some of those were in the animatic about throwing up a piece. Like, you have to know that that's part of the culture's language in order to do that. And we're incorporating that in some of the clues. So we had like a notepad with terminology of that the elder taught them about, so that when they're talking to people, they'll get a chance to use that language and feel more comfortable with the people that they're interviewing.
Thank you for the question. Any other?
Hi, this is a very cool but very ambitious experience. And there seems to be a lot of moving parts in terms of like the different sort of technologies you're trying to incorporate and the physical props and the virtual scenes. Do you have certain fallback plans or like modularization of the experience so that if one thing doesn't work out, you have a option for another thing? Like, how have you thought about that process in terms of getting to the final experience?
Yeah. One major way that we're providing those fallbacks is having a facilitator as part of the experience. So if something breaks, we'll have ways of getting the clues to the players regardless. The way that we're developing most of our technology also is in a form that it could be switched out for another thing. So the way that we're implementing the phone, we're not actually gutting it and creating our own. So any phone that has a phone line can be swapped in if ours breaks. So we're doing our best to think about that resilience and alternative ways of the players getting information. But that's something that we will continue to play test throughout the semester.
A lot of the clue pieces are tangible things that they can hold. It would be no more work to do is to create some of the things that we had as digital things as physical ones and just have them off to the side to be used if needs be. So the interaction between the two and kind of leaning in and using the space to have a lot of the clues allows for, if something goes wrong, we could probably switch that out easily.
Yeah, and I guess to be a little bit more specific, a lot of the things that players will be doing in the digital world is investigating places, getting information, taking photos. And the way that we're delivering the photos is through the Tilt 5, but they can also just be physical photos that if something breaks, the facilitator can hand to the kids. Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us here and online. And we are Renew, a project team that aims to transform physical therapy into play. And our vision is simple: from rehab to play, and from play to progress. We are currently developing data-driven exercise games based on grounded and real physical therapy exercise powered by New Shoe Smart Shoes. Each game integrates physical and cognitive challenges to make therapy more engaging and sustainable. Ultimately, our goal is to turn evidence-based rehabilitation into interactive, measurable gameplay, which can bridge the gap between clinical practice and play. This is the team. I'm Victor. This is James, Angie, Isabella, and Esme, and we're also privileged to be guided by our lovely and amazing consultant and advisors, Charles, Heather, and John. Our client, Magnus AG, develops the medical-grade product, New Shoe Smart Shoes, which is the foundation of our project. Their tech is what makes everything possible. We'll get more into details after. afterwards. And Ian from AHN Neuroscience Institute also helped us understand how our gameplay can complement real-world physical therapy exercises. By the end of the semester, our deliverable will be a set of 3 to 5 minigames. Each is inspired by a real and grounded physical therapy exercise that combines both physical and cognitive training. These games will eventually be integrated into one complete game experience designed for the use in the physical therapy office. And on the setup side, there will be 2 devices, a patient-facing computer screen where the patient can play the game, and also a physiotherapy-facing phone or tablet web app, which allows them to adjust the difficulty and for them to track progress. With all that said, I'm now handling it to Ingji and James to demonstrate a live demo of one of our early prototype.
Cool. So this is a demo of one of our mini games. The physical therapy exercise that we're targeting here is heel raises. As you can see, James is demoing our game for us. He's wearing our smart shoes. And as James raises his heels and performs a heel raise, the camera in our game also rises following his motion so that he can see above the fence and see the beautiful scene with butterflies behind it. These shoes act as an input device for our game. So as you can see in the top left corner, the shoe position is live tracked and it's mapped to that model in the game. Additionally, our shoes function as feedback for the users as well, since they have a haptic motor in the heel, which can send vibration signals. So upon each successful heel raise, the shoe will vibrate to tell James that you did a correct and successful heel raise. Additionally, heel raises, we chose heel raises as an exercise to explore first because it's a super common physical therapy exercise, and it's also really important in building strength and in the push-off phase of walking, so when you first start to walk. You might also notice that there's this huge QR code in the corner. So this is actually the physical therapist view for our game. So if you take out your phone and you scan the QR code, you'll see this web page. So this is the physical therapist view. This is the player view. On the physical therapist view, you can see the live player metrics updating. So when James performs a successful heel raise, the number of heel raises will go up. And if James performs an unsuccessful heel raise, you'll also see that the heel raise success rate goes down. So on this page, the physical therapist can see both the player performance and some additional data, so they can use to benchmark the patient's performance during physical therapy exercises. Additionally, this interface allows the physical therapist to control the difficulty of the game as it's being played. So if you press the plus or minus button, you can increase or decrease the color of butterflies in the scene, and that can adjust the difficulty. For this game, it's not only the physical exercise side, there's also a cognitive aspect. So the physical side is just doing the heel raise exercises. And a cognitive element could be that the physical therapist asks the player to count the number of butterflies or to name all of the butterfly colors. So you might be wondering how all of this works, and especially how our shoes work. So I'm going to pass it over to James to talk more about the shoe tech.
So yeah, the shoes that I've been wearing right now, they're pretty fascinating, isn't it? They not only just look pretty normal from the outside, they do have a lot of magic going on in the inside. So in it, we have an accelerometer to start with, a gyroscope, and a magnetometer. Those are capable of getting precise position data as well as the rotation of my feet, and we'll stream those to our PC game via Bluetooth. What makes the Magnet Snoo Shoe stands out more from the other smart shoe devices is because it has a haptic motor, and that turns out to be a very powerful element in our design. So this is just a early testing thing that we want to ensure that we're able to communicate with the shoe, showing the game visual maps to the actual physical shoe that we are holding. So yeah, clearly, these are not just any average shoes. They not only collect data from sensors, they have a gait detection feature for walking-based exercises, it also has the most exciting thing about the haptics. For haptics, it allows us to cue a vibration at any time we want, for any duration, at any intensity. So very powerful. One powerful use case for which is that our client Nushu, they have been using this with the Parkinson patients. On the left side, you can see without the haptics, the patient encounters the freeze of gaits, which means that they're not comfortable with taking a larger step. On the right-hand side, you see when the haptic is on, because it's cueing at the right moment. So they feel the haptics, and they are more confident in taking a step and having better walking. And yeah, I'm going to pass back to Inji to talk about our setup.
Cool, thanks, James. So since we want our game to work in a physical therapist's office, let's first take a look at what the current PT scene is. So currently for most physical therapy sessions, they are low tech or no tech, which means that a physical therapist asks a patient to do a set of exercises, and then based on their own judgment and expertise, they can tell how well a patient is performing. But there's no data collection, there's no additional metrics. On the other extreme, there's a couple of really high-tech options, but those are used mostly in research settings, and they're not widely accessible to the general public. Thus, we wanted to leverage the data that the shoes give us to create a data-driven metric that the physical therapist can use to create an experience that allows them to measure the performance of the patients using data as the physical therapy session is continuing. So we talk a lot about data and information passing, so how does that actually work? Well, our Unity game serves as the central hub for all of that. The shoes is able to communicate with Unity over Bluetooth, and it streams the raw data of the sensors to our game. Our game is also able to tell the shoes when to vibrate to cue that vibration signal. On the physical therapist side, the web app talks to Unity through a local server, and our Unity game is able to package live performance metrics and send it over to the web app. And additionally, the physical therapist can use the web app to adjust game parameters live during a physical therapy session. Now I'll pass it back to James to talk more about our game.
Thank you, Angie. Our game is all about making carryover for the physical therapy trainings. The concept of carryover is about how good the player or the patient performs in a clinical setting, and how well that transfers to a everyday scenario that they will be facing. Oftentimes in a clinical setting, because they are hyper-focused on just one mobile task, so they are able to do it, but when they go outside, there's a lot of distraction, people talking, and they couldn't perform as well as they could have. So what our game wants to do is to encompass both aspects of having physical-based exercise and the cognitive load. So better simulating a scenario that they will face in the real world, and making that making that motor skill to be more ingrained to the body. One good example of this is the heel raise. So if we are doing this at the same time when we ask them to just name some fruits, so they're doing this, and their mind are thinking about apples, bananas, and that has been proven to help with the carryover. And here you can see our game serves as a bridge to close the gaps between play and actual progression, and that's why we like to say from rehab to play and from play to progress. Our game is themed upon some outdoor activities. For that, the target user is easier to relate than, let's say, an abstract fantasy gaming world. It also consists of 3 to 5 mini games that each of them links to an actual physical therapy exercise that has been validated by our SMEs. In each of these games, we want to use the shoe as input to detect motion, and also using the shoes at haptics as output to cue the player if they're doing the correct things or not. And now I'm going to pass to, one more thing. So very importantly, we have the concept visual here. Because we have been saying that we want to be easy to access from the player and also easy to monitor for the physical therapist, we have two interfaces here. And the physical therapist will connect the shoes for the player and also decide on which activity they want to work on. For the player, they will see a clear progression and a clear visual indicator of the shoe status in real time. Well, at the same time, the physical therapist can see more in-depth stats about how they're doing, and also be able to adjust the difficulty. In the end, we want to show a rewarding screen for the player to see what they have accomplished, and even including a randomized fun fact so that it varies every time they play it. And now I'm going to pass to Isabella to talk about more detailed gameplay.
Thank you, James. Now let's dive into more details. As we showed in the live demo section, the first game we have here led player to see some beautiful scenery by raising their heels and looking beyond the wall. The shoe will give player a vibration signal as long as they do the hill raise. There's a reason why we choose hill raising as the first demo of our minigames. The gameplay is quite intuitive and simple because we considered some of our audience might be elders who have really limited experience with video games. Even though the gameplay itself is simple, the factor behind it has much more complexity. For example, PD can decide what height or angle they want the player to reach, and they can also adjust the color and number of the butterflies so that the patients can do some carryover exercise. And for the art side, here's what we did. We recreated the no-shoe model as an indicator so that all patients and PD can both see whether they raise their heels. And the butterfly is created with Unity visual effect graph. The color can be changed with the input node, and this helps PT with the carryover exercise. And the post-processing effect has been added to the scene. We want to give a warm and cozy vibe, which makes the players feel welcomed. Now I'll pass to Esme for the second product.
Thank you, Isabella. Cognitive engagement is so important, especially the way body and mind coordination supports reactive balance training, which is specifically designed to help prevent falls. That understanding became the foundation of our prototype gameplay too. The minigame theme is spot, step, and stop. In this experience, animals rush into the scene from any directions, and players must react fast, stepping in the direction with half to 1 second to scare the animals away. The shoes then detect the wave shapes and directional movements in all axes, capturing the player's balance reactions in real time and translating them directly back into the game. The haptic motors then vibrate to validate their success and encourage them for the next try. We already built the demo scene and assets, creating an inviting environment that feels friendly rather than intimidating. It means to be lighthearted, and if a player missed a step and feels too scary a fox, a bunny, or a little dog, well, maybe sharing a bite of apple with such adorable and fluffy visitors isn't so bad after all. Finally, on the PT's end, they can dynamically adjust the difficulty, not only by the speed and also the amount of animals rushing into the scene, they can also tracking the gait length. That encourages them to do a better gait training.
Okay, thank you, Esme. We keep on addressing how important it is to work with PT, but why exactly is it important? First of all, during development, PT help us refine our design by making sure that these games are effective and safe. And also at the same time, they represent a core user group in our final product. Since our target demographic may not be that familiar with games, PTs will assist the patients in settling it up and guiding through the gameplay, while also using their own tablet and phone interface to adjust difficulty. So this collaboration make it possible for us to stay both clinically grounded and motivating to play. And so far, with the help of PT, we've built 2 early prototypes and defined more evidence-based training goals. After Halves, we'll continue to do more outreach and development, building additional minigames and refining gameplay through playtests. By softs, we plan to finalize gameplay and the playtest interface. And by finals, we'll launch a completed game version, and also for the player and the PT sides, and we'll deliver it to our clients. And thank you, we're Team Renewshoe. We aim to creating a playful, data-driven rehab experience using the new shoe, smart shoes. And our mission is simple: from rehab to play, and from play to progress. Thank you. We're now open for questions.
Hi, I think my question is just around the target audience. How come, I guess, I don't know if it was explicitly said or if I just missed it, is this only meant targeted towards like elders using the shoes? Because I know a lot of people who do PT and like do heel raise and stuff, and they're like of all ages, our ages. So yeah, was that a choice with the client? Was that just your choice?
Since our client has mostly worked with Parkinson's patients in the past, that's where most of like their connections are. So they wanted us to explore a space that we can provide physical therapy to people in that related like realm. We're currently looking for playtesters who are on the older side, but since physical therapy, anyone can do it, anyone can also playtest our game.
What do you guys see as the definition of done for this project? What's the goal with your client and collaborators? What do you hope to hand off to them?
So now we're thinking like basically a complete game with 3 to 5 minute like task-oriented mini games into it, and they have been proven that is effective and also grounded and safe by the physical therapist. And with that product itself, it's like explorative enough for the client, and also the data that comes along with the gameplay itself. Like, yeah, that is it.
But do you need to do like a clinical trial after this, or are they trying to productize something?
Yeah, so our client is mostly looking to get into games. They want us to build some games for them that they can use and play. They didn't specify that it needs to be a specific like research like backed or clinical trial backed experience. They mainly want to see like our data and our code.
So in the past, when we did some patient therapy projects, one of the problems is always having it be motivating, because it often is painful. It's some work. And one way to make it motivating was to lean into what would the patient want to do? How could they maybe tune the theming or change what they're doing with the game? Have you thought more on how you can make something that might be painful more motivating for the patient?
Yeah, so like our goal, as we said, we want it to be more welcoming than to be intimidating. So that's why we choose the theme, and all the exercises we're gonna start off simple, and then we have different layers of difficulty that the PT can adjust for. So based on the success rate that we have from our consultant, they mentioned if they reach 75%, that might be a good place to step up the difficulty, and that's where we build all these interfaces for them to adjust it for the patients.
And at the same time, we also do feel like given a visualization of how their progress is at the moment, will be easier for them to feel that sense of achievement, and hence that will also help to motivate them. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, cool.
We have a click over here.
All right, so hello guys. We are at the last team today. Thanks for staying with us. We are Echo Trail, and we are doing exploration about large language model experience, which we also call as LLM. So here's our team. And here's our instructors, Mo and Shirley. So originally, we might know this project as actually Andes, and it was pitched to be a multi-semester project to letting people chat with Andy Warhol and Andrew Carnegie. It was a very, very cool idea, but didn't fly after we talked to the Warhol Museum about the copyright issues. So we were anxious, we sat down and thought, well now, how do we keep going this project moving forward? So it started with reframing our goal. We asked ourselves, what is the higher level idea in this project that we can keep exploring without worrying about the preset characters? And we defined the goal into two parts. The first one is that we are exploring how can we make a natural and dynamic conversation with not one, but two LLM-driven AI characters. We are doing this three-way conversation because it really pushes the applications of LLM in technical boundaries and also create tons of technical challenges that Terry and Brian will dive in later. The other part of the goal is that by using such amazing technology, how can we create something that make the interaction more entertaining and interesting? To do that, we conducted research and also considering about the copyright issues again. And ultimately, we chose Athena and Poseidon as our characters. Around them, we designed a set of experience aimed for middle school students to help them learn about Greek mythology, which our design team will talk next. But for now, let's switch to Terry and listen into her story about how we solve the tech issues.
Thank you. So, is it easy to make the two AI characters talk naturally? Let's talk about the challenges and solutions we have on the tech side. We began by experimenting with local models that we could run on our own machines. This provided greater privacy because whatever the user says is not being sent to an external server. And it also has the added benefit of being free and doesn't require internet connection. However, not only was it slow, we could only run text-based models on our local machines, and these models tend to narrate the actions like in a storybook rather than a real person would in a conversation. And in general, they weren't very smart, so we had to think of something else. Next, we tried to implement it using OpenAI's real-time API. Since processing was done by OpenAI's powerful servers, this meant that it was both fast and smart. And more importantly, the OpenAI real-time API is specifically designed for voice-to-voice chat, which means that it kind of provided an all-in-one package for us to use. The only downside was that there was a limited number of voices that we could choose from, but that was something that we could mitigate by doing post-processing on the voice. Another hurdle we faced was that the AIs are designed to have one-on-one conversations with the user. So you cannot have a problem where the user speaks and both AIs will try to reply to the user at the same time. So we had to find a way to determine how the AI should reply to the user. What we came up with in the end was to have a third AI, which we named the director, to kind of determine how the actors, Poseidon and Athena, should reply. There are two cases. So in the first case, they will take turns speaking. So for example, in this, Athena will speak first, and then Poseidon will speak second. And there is another case, which is that, let's say the user specifically calls out to one of the AIs. In this case, for example, Athena, then only Athena will reply. This is an overview of how the conversational loop works. First, the user speaks. Then the director determines the reply order. Next, the actors shall reply. And finally, we lip sync that to our 3D model, and then rinse and repeat. Next year, we'll talk about the character design.
Thank you, Terry. So what's next? So we really want to make the conversation natural. So we work on this, also on the language and the expression. So the AI is really follow our prompts at first. They can really talk in a really majestic and mystic way. But then we found the problem is that they sound too much like AI. What's the problem? We have three problems here. First, the characters are too emotionless, which means that we cannot know their attitude. So we try to add some interjections in the process so the user can know their attitude towards specific topics. The second thing is that they are too repetitive. For example, the Athena always mentions her wisdom, and the Poseidon always mentions his ocean power like kids. So it's so boring in the process. So we try to use a prompt to solve this problem. The third problem is that the talk is too empty. So when we have a conversation, we really want to have some takeaway from the conversation. But the result from our playtest, we realized that we need to add more conversation or examples in the story so that the users can have more takeaway. Besides that, we also try to design different expression. Here are some examples. First is the solemn one.
I am Athena, daughter of Zeus, goddess of wisdom and strategy.
Now this is the hostile one.
You forget, uncle, that it was my wisdom that granted them the olive tree.
Now we have the arrogant Poseidon.
Bah, a fine gathering of mortals who dabble in the edges of creativity.
So for the experience design, we have conducted 15 playtests, and we have collected 43 insights. And each insight really helps us improve our design a lot. Here, I want to share one of them. More guidance for user. Through the playtests, we realized that the user feel like the two characters are so like interviewees. We realized that the users, they really want a really complicated conversation experience. So we need to achieve a balance of like debating, talking, listening experience. The other thing is that the user feel so nervous when they talk with the gods. So we realized that we need to design different stages, different progression. For example, the AI will introduce themselves and talk with the user, then we start the conversation. Now it's live demo time.
Right, it's live demo time, enough talking. Before we kick things off, does anyone in here want to ask some random questions to Athena and Poseidon?
Anyone dare speak to a god?
Yep. All right, we have Michael here. Thanks so much. Due to time limitation, the demo will probably be around 1 or 2 minutes. So.
Greetings, mortal. I am Athena, goddess of wisdom and strategy, daughter of Zeus. By invitation of Mo Mahler and Shirley Saldamarco, we stand here to share our divine insight with the minds at ETC. You seek knowledge, and so we offer our presence as a beacon of learning. Let wisdom guide your path.
And I am Poseidon, god of the sea and earthquakes, brother of mighty Zeus. By my power and his decree, we have graced this hall of learning. You mortals shall know it is I who commands the storms and quakes, and through my force, we shape the very world you walk upon. We can speak of Olympus, of the nature of these artificial minds you toy with, or of your Echo Trio endeavors. Know this, my presence here is both a privilege and a test. Will you ride the waves of knowledge, or be swallowed by the depths? I invite your questions, if you dare.
So you're both relatives of Zeus. What if Zeus retires? Who should lead the gods?
Zeus retire? Ha! The sky's throne is not so easily emptied. But should that day come, who better than I, Poseidon, to lead? I command the oceans that gird the earth, the horses that bear men, and the earthquakes that shape your fate. My rule would be firm as granite, as endless as the tides. You ask who should lead? Remember, mortal, it is the sea that feeds you, the sea that carries your ships, and the sea that can swallow them whole. Without me, none of you would last a day on this earth. That is the strength of a leader. That is the power of Poseidon.
The sea roars loudly again. But tell me, brother, would you drown Olympus as well? Leadership requires far more than raw force. Wisdom tempers strength. I guided Odysseus through the cunning paths of war and peace, while brute strength flounders without insight. Consider the cities built by my hands, not just the waters you churn. The olive tree I gifted Athens stands tall, nourishing mortals long after tempests pass. Leadership stands on wisdom, not just waves.
We're at a university. What is more important, wisdom or strength?
A university is a cradle of learning. Wisdom is the foundation upon which all strength must rest. Without wisdom,
we're running out of time. Okay, thank you, Michael. So you can see that we really try hard to make the conversation natural. Now we want to talk more about after half. So since we make the conversation, the experience really natural, so after half we want to make the experience interesting and entertaining. So our target user is middle school student who learning Greek mythology. They are really story-oriented and also they are really emotional engaged. The problem they have is that when they learn the Greek mythology, they feel the textbook is so boring and hard to visualize. And also they feel like they have limited opportunities to reach history beyond the classroom. So since they are really story-oriented, so we will try to naturally embed some stories about Greek mythology in the dialogue. Besides that, they are really emotionally engaged, so we will allow the users to participate in the user choices. They will learn more about the story branches, and also they will try to finish some interactive tasks. Now, let's welcome Shiwei to talk more about the journey.
All right, so what our experience looks like. Start with the typical opening that imagine you're a middle school student sitting in a Greek mythology class, bored as hell, struggling to stay interested. One day, the teacher announces a field trip to the Museum of Art and History. You are not super excited, you just feel like it's another chance for learning another lecture, just in a different place. At the museum, you walk into a dark room, and suddenly, a glowing projection of Athena and Poseidon appears. The god speaks and invites you to chat. You start asking random questions like, who are you guys? What are you doing here? Do you even know about Pittsburgh? The god responds, witty, curious, and full of personality. And you become completely engaged, loving, debating, and discovering Greek myth in a way that you never had. The conversation feels real and entertaining. And back home, you open the textbook again, this time not because you have to, but because you want to. And now that you have seen the whole experience, let's switch to Aurora, who will show how the art style brings the experience to life.
Our project uses a stylized art style for Athena and Poseidon. We wanted the characters to look distinct and iconic, and also easy to maintain consistent through production. So instead of going to for realism, we simplified the forms and use clear shapes and features. So on the right-hand side are some of the visual references. We know that the shape of the hair, muscles, and eyebrows can show their personalities. So we use these designs into our modeling process. Also on the, so for our art progress, we've completed the base models for both Athena and Poseidon, and we made designs for Athena's helmet, her clothes styles, and also the armor. And for Poseidon, we've finished his high poly sculpt, and we focused on refining his autonomy and the flow of his design by adding facial features such as scars, wrinkles, and also we made designs for his hair and the beard to emphasize his power. Right now, we are moving into the UV unwrapping stage and rigging for animation, and also preparing for texturing and material development next. Our next step will also be to make rigs for Athena and Poseidon, finalize Athena's high poly model, and also start experimenting with textures. Now let's welcome Brian to talk about our future plans.
So talking about the future, we want to talk on the tech side and how we're going to make things better. For the future, there are two main things we want to address on the technical side after Halves. We want to provide more options for our designers to experiment and cater towards the users, helping them follow the fun faster and better. With that in mind, there are two general areas we hope to improve upon. First, to allow a system that will allow us more discrete control over the conversation flow, and second is to overall improve the responses. And when I say improve the responses, I mean both in terms of the dialogue itself, but also the voice output, to allow the dialogue to have more depth, but also the voices to have a bit more characteristics. In fact, we might try to implement such like minor flaws, such as verbal tics, or even have them occasionally drop the F-bomb if they're asked like a really, really personal question. And how will we actually provide those technical upgrades? One of the biggest compromises we made, and one of the most likely methods that we can improve upon, is to shift from GPT-4o real-time to GPT-5 plus 11 labs. Originally, GPT-4o real-time was used for the simple fact that it had the worst of both worlds. Yes, you heard me right, the worst of both worlds, but it had both worlds. As a single API platform, it was able to provide both voice input and output, along with some control over the conversation flows. But that's a compromise. On the other hand, GPT-5 has better logic flow, along with the fact that 11 Labs is a dedicated platform specifically for voice output, for having voice output. In fact, if we have the text output from GPT-5 and integrate it with 11 Labs, you can actually add literal sarcasm into the prompt to have words and sentences be spoken with a sarcastic tone.
Right, so I think that we are trying to deliver a 10-minute experience in museum and for middle school students to help them learn Greek mythology as a supplement to the textbooks. And now, thanks for listening. We are open for any feedbacks.
Given that your audience sounds like sort of like middle school, 10 to 12, have you looked into any examples of Greek mythology being adapted for that audience to guide some of your design?
Yeah, we specifically watch two types of things. Mostly entertainment stuff, like Percy Jackson, and also Tale and Bill's based.
Ted and Ted's.
I can never remember their name. Yeah, they're both entertaining, and most importantly, we are trying to learn how do they make the experience better for like 10 to 12 age. It's mostly just about having random events and things that are out of your mind. Like in the TV show, they have a time machine where the people can go back to the past and bring history figures like Napoleon to present, which is exactly what we're doing right now.
You probably aren't aware of a change in the curriculum I made for fundies this year. Some of my students in here are probably laughing right now. I didn't even know they were doing this. So my assignment right now is for students to design a game in which Paris and Aphrodite and Athena and who's the third goddess? Hera have a conversation. They're about to hand it in sometime really soon, but maybe after the break, we can get some of my first-year students and you guys and me together to discuss. That would be great.
Absolutely, very much. Keep us in touch.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Chris.
Sorry. I think my main question is, given that your audience is middle school students, what is your plan on constraining the topics they can ask about?
So there's, okay, it goes. The built-in, there's some, are you talking about potential of them asking inappropriate questions? Because that's kind of what I'm trying to hit.
Yes, or also just questions not related to Greek mythology that maybe Poseidon and Athena shouldn't have an opinion about, like, I don't know, politics? Or maybe they should.
So since we were talking about moving on to ChatGPT 5, basically like text-based AI, what we could do is that we could kind of try to prompt the AI to say, you are only constrained to answering by using the topics that we provide you. And then we are able to actually, for like ChatGPT 5, we'll be able to give it like the large files into the model. So like in the vectorized form and tell it, hey, use file search whenever you're prompted and try to rank the files and search relevant information from it. So we could perhaps try to say, hey, if the information is not found within these files, just give a kind of like can response to say, sorry, this is out of my parameters, I cannot respond to that. So that can kind of like, in a sense, try to limit what they are able to reply with. So that's one possibility that we can try to do.
Another thing is that with the switching to ChatGPT 5 text-based LLM and then parsing it through our end and then doing a separate API call to 11 Labs, in that middle, we kind of have some control over like manually filtering of the strings as to say, hey, some words, some topics, if they were triggered, like we just take that out or trigger some sort of like a hard stop if this is a very, very sensitive word. So we can have, again, it's the whole purpose of switching to two separate, in the middle ground, we can have some sort of filtering of those kind of words. Yeah.
What is the funniest thing Poseidon or Athena has said in response to a question?
I think it would be the demo we had earlier.
we are allowed to say those questions right here.
There was a constant request for, let's just say, sexual activity with some guts. So I'm just, I mean, I'm sorry, but like the other users we play test, like that was one. I don't know why that's the first thing that comes to mind for them, but they do. That's what they like asking for some reason.
You did call it waifu AI.
Okay, so to be fair, I named that before we knew that we were going to be using, like, before we kind of like had, we knew what the actors were going to be. So, but it was just back when the personas were essentially still like up in the air, and that's what I named the project.
Yeah, but in general, people are very enjoy asking weird questions and also moral judgment or philosophical questions. And after Halves, we're gonna keep having iterations about what people find entertaining and try to merge those stuffs into our demo. Yeah. Thank you so much.